I am somebody who dealt with serious introverts, and at that time I was very much an introvert, and I had a cocaine problem too, which was adding to it. So a lot of what I did was counterproductive for myself in terms of really connecting with the.
Remember Garrett Morris? The legendary actor and original Saturday Night Live cast member whose infectious humor once lit up screens across America. But behind the laughs, his life was anything but easy. Almost 90 now, Morris has survived bullets, betrayals, and even being fired while recovering in a hospital bed after a gunshot wound. Yes, you heard that right. The beloved comedian, who played the iconic Stan Winters on Martin, was written out of the show under circumstances that fans still struggle to understand, decades later. And if you think that's shocking, the truth about how Martin Lawrence handled it, and what really happened behind the scenes, might just leave you gasping. From getting shot and fired while in the hospital to decades of secrets and struggles, by the end of this video, you'll never look at the smiling face of this comedy legend the same way again. Garrett Isaac Morris was born in New Orleans, Louisiana, on a chilly February day in 1937. He grew up under the watchful eye of his grandfather, a Southern Baptist preacher, but with a twist. According to Morris, his grandfather's antics were so wild that they pushed him away from Christianity entirely, leading him instead toward Buddhism. Morris would later recall that his grandfather preached the high road by day, but led a very different life by night. From sermons to secret rendezvous, he was more than just spreading the word. Let's just say the organist wasn't the only one hitting high notes, and the church ladies, well, they were getting more than just spiritual guidance. From a young age, Morris showed a remarkable passion for music. His grandfather recognized his talent and had him join the church choir by the age of 4. Those early steps would only be the beginning. He went on to study at the Press Julius Art School of Music and, in 1956, earned a scholarship to the Tanglewood Music Workshop, where he won the Tanglewood Conductors Award just 2 years later. After graduating from Dillard University, Morris made the decision to pursue music professionally. He appeared in musicals, demonstrating a talent that seemed almost unstoppable. By the 1970s, he transitioned to film, debuting in the black comedy Where's Papa as the character Garrett, and continued to build his career in several other projects. But his real breakthrough came in 1975, when he joined the cast of Saturday Night Live, SNL, on NBC. He became part of the original lineup, a group that included comedy legends like Bill Murray, John Belushi, Dan Aykroyd, Gilda Radner, and Chevy Chase. While the fame of his peers would soar across stages and screens, Morris was carving his own path, navigating a world of comedy that was as competitive as it was groundbreaking. But then there's Garrett Morris. And this is where the story gets really juicy. Morris wasn't just another performer. He was the trailblazer, SNL's very first black cast member. He carved out a path through a comedy world that had barely seen someone like him before, laying the groundwork for future icons like Eddie Murphy, Tracy Morgan, and Kenan Thompson. He was the blueprint for modern comedy duos like Key and Peele, and the foundation for an entire generation of black sketch performers, including powerhouse ensembles in shows led by black women. So why isn't Garrett Morris's name shouted from the rooftops? Why isn't he celebrated every Black History Month or honored with a triumphant return to SNL alongside the legends he helped create? Instead, Morris often finds himself in the shadows, overlooked despite the barriers he broke. And here's the truth. His SNL story isn't remembered as a golden age of laughs. It's a chapter marked by disrespect, heavy drug use backstage, and the harsh sting of racism. Imagine a classically trained theater performer, a man with Broadway-level credits, stepping into the high-pressure, unpredictable chaos of live television. It was a world he wasn't prepared for, and it didn't make things easy. Morris later opened up to Maya Rudolph and The Hollywood Reporter, revealing tales more dramatic than any SNL sketch could deliver. This wasn't just the story of an actor trying to survive in comedy. Morris was a playwright, a seasoned theater artist with a resume that could make Broadway weep. Yet moving from the depth of theater into the punchy, fast-paced world of sketch comedy brought its own kind of drama. And the villains? They were straight out of a soap opera. Morris suggested he could play a doctor in a sketch. And what happened? He was flat out told that America wasn't ready for a black doctor on television. A slap in the face, pure and simple. If that doesn't scream primetime scandal, what does? But Garrett Morris wasn't the type to bow to backstage bullies. He faced whispers of racist jokes, saw other writers steal and rewrite his scripts, and endured quiet attempts to erase him from SNL history altogether. Yet he didn't back down. Like any true underdog, he auditioned for the not ready for primetime players, fought for his place, and earned his spot in the limelight. Yet the plot thickened. Even as a cast member of SNL, Garrett Morris wasn't immune to the backstage drama. The roles he was handed often leaned into the absurd, the stereotypical, and the downright insulting. One notorious example? He was asked to play a flying monkey, a role so ridiculous it sparked outrage among his black fans and sent shockwaves through his growing audience. But Morris, ever the professional, refused to be humiliated or typecast. He stood his ground, proving that he was not a performer to be silenced or sidelined, no matter how chaotic the world around him became. Of course, the fame and spotlight didn't shield him from darker battles. Behind the scenes, Morris was grappling with demons most people couldn't imagine. He began experimenting with cocaine, the white powdery substance that had claimed countless careers before his. And yet, even while fighting addiction, he kept showing up, delivering laughs, and bringing joy to fans who had no idea what he was enduring off camera. During his 5-year run on Saturday Night Live, Garrett Morris was not just navigating the high-pressure world of live comedy, he was also wrestling with a personal demon that would shadow him for decades: cocaine addiction. He was not alone. His co-star John Belushi famously battled similar issues. Reflecting on Belushi's untimely death, Morris said, "We lost one of the greatest talents in the country, but John and I never really partied together. I was more introverted. After they wrapped up the show, usually they'd all go to a bar, but I'd just go home. I'm not sure the cocaine helped with being introverted." Morris's addiction did not end when he left SNL in 1980. Despite moving on to memorable roles in The Jeffersons, Martin, The Jamie Foxx Show, and even guest appearances on Two Broke Girls, the pull of the drug remained. It wasn't until roughly 10 years ago that he finally achieved lasting sobriety. Speaking about the process, he shared, "I went to Alcoholics Anonymous. They give you a sponsor and that guy calls you all day long. But it works. Within 6 months to a year, I felt like I could stay sober forever." Even beyond his struggles with cocaine, Morris endured countless other hardships during his career. In his early 20s, when he performed as a singer with the Harry Belafonte folk singers, segregation and systemic racism followed him, even in the world of entertainment. Black performers were often denied accommodations at the same hotels as their white colleagues. The black guys had to go to the black part of town to try and find a hotel there, he recalled, the frustration still evident in his voice decades later. On one particularly jarring occasion in Los Angeles, Morris was arrested simply for walking while black as he prepared to sing at the Greek Theater alongside Belafonte. Racism, he says, was a constant undertone throughout his Hollywood tenure, not as overt as the Jim Crow South of his youth in New Orleans, but insidious in its own way. "I thought Hollywood would be all progressives," he admitted, reflecting on his naivety. "It surprised me." Even in the bustling, glamorous environments of New York and Los Angeles, Morris found the prejudice to be hidden yet persistent, a subtle reminder that talent alone could not shield him from society's biases. Despite the personal struggles, Morris's talent and determination kept him moving forward. In the early 1980s, he landed roles in cult films that showcased his versatility. He starred in The Census Taker as Harvey, the irritatingly persistent census taker, a performance that turned annoyance into comedy gold. The following year, he appeared in the sci-fi horror movie The Stuff as Charles W. Hobbs, a junk food magnate known as Chocolate Chip Charlie. During the 80s and 90s, Morris didn't just survive, he thrived, dominating screens with his unique comedic presence. But life, as it often does, had a bitter surprise in store. During the filming of the hit sitcom Martin, Morris's life nearly ended in an instant. Walking through central Los Angeles, he was confronted by two men who attempted to mug him. True to his personality, Morris initially underestimated the danger. "Looks like someone wants to fight," he reportedly quipped, unaware of the severity of the threat. Before he knew it, one of the men had him in a hold from behind. But Garrett Morris wasn't just a comic genius. He was a first-degree black belt. He spun around to fight back, only to come face-to-face with a gun. The moment froze time. "When I turned around, that's when I saw the gun," Morris later recalled. "I didn't know he had a gun. Had I known, I wouldn't have done anything. If he'd come to me like that with the gun, I'd say, 'Hey man, whatever you want.'" It was a brush with death that could have ended it all. A stark reminder that behind the laughter and applause, Morris's life had been anything but safe or easy. And yet, even after that night, even after the bullet and the fear, Garrett Morris refused to let the world define him through tragedy. He kept moving, performing, surviving, and, most importantly, making people laugh. The news spread like wildfire. Garrett Morris had been attacked and required emergency surgery. The world watched in shock, but behind the scenes, Morris discovered a painful truth. Nobody on set seemed to care. His co-stars didn't call, didn't visit, didn't check in. Perhaps co-stars aren't friends. One could excuse that. But what came next crossed a line no one should ever cross. While Morris was lying in the hospital, recovering from gunshot wounds and undergoing his fourth major operation, a fight for his very life, the show's producer, Martin Lawrence, made a move that would sting for decades. "The person who was producing Martin decided to fire me while I was actually in the hospital," Morris later revealed. The script arrived in his hospital room like a dagger in the heart. His character, Stan Winters, was simply being sent to China. Just like that, while Morris struggled to breathe and recover, the people he had worked with decided his time on one of television's most popular sitcoms was over. Morris faced a choice: spiral into despair or channel his anger. True to his resilient nature, he chose the latter. He'd seen worse in his long and challenging career. Racism had shadowed him since the start, from being forced to stay in distant hotels to avoid white co-stars noticing him, to the horrifying reality of being arrested simply for walking while black. His existence alone had been policed, scrutinized, and punished. Yet the blow from Martin cut deeper. He had been a part of the cast for the first 2 seasons, a significant role that showcased his talent. And then, vanished. To add insult to injury, Martin Lawrence publicly claimed he visited Morris in the hospital, shedding tears over the incident. A story Morris says was completely fabricated. He never received a real explanation for the abrupt firing, leaving one of the most talented and trailblazing black performers in comedy feeling invisible. And Morris's frustrations didn't stop there. Even comedy royalty had crossed him. Richard Pryor, one of the greatest comedians of all time, ended up on Morris's list of grievances. During Pryor's 1975 Saturday Night Live hosting gig, Morris had high hopes. Here was the man he admired most, the trailblazer he had long looked up to. Surely they would collaborate, share sketches, shine together on live TV. But that didn't happen. Pryor didn't engage with Morris, didn't involve him in sketches, and barely acknowledged his presence. Morris, the first black man in SNL's cast and a performer with years of theatrical experience, felt relegated to the sidelines, like a glorified sidekick, invisible despite his talent. It was a bitter pill for someone who had already fought so hard to carve out a place in comedy. Later, Pryor attempted to mend fences, inviting Morris to appear in the film Critical Condition. But the episode left a mark. Morris had experienced yet again how, even in moments of opportunity, the doors for black performers could be closed, shifted, or minimized by those in power. For over 6 decades, Garrett Morris has been a constant in entertainment, lighting up the stage in musicals, commanding attention on Saturday Night Live, and delivering unforgettable performances in film and television. Yet behind every laugh and applause was a life peppered with battles, addiction, systemic racism, and the lingering trauma from a near-fatal robbery. Recognition for this kind of dedication rarely comes fast enough. On February 1st, 2024, however, the world finally caught up. Garrett Morris received the honor that so many had long argued he deserved, his very own star on the Hollywood Walk of Fame. The ceremony, officiated by Chamber and Hollywood Council member Hugo Stowe Martinez, was a nod not only to his talent, but to his resilience. "I present you, Garrett, with a city resolution," Martinez announced, etching Morris's name into the storied history of Hollywood. The timing was poetic. The star ceremony coincided with Garrett's birthday, making it a double celebration of life and legacy. But in the crowd, one glaring absence didn't go unnoticed. Martin Lawrence, the man whose show Martin had once both made and nearly broken him, was nowhere to be seen. Comparisons to previous honorees were immediate. When other stars like Steve Harvey, Tracy Morgan, and TAA received their Walk of Fame nods, the industry came out in force. For Morris, though, the void of Lawrence's presence was a quiet reminder of old wounds, the hospital betrayal that had haunted him for decades. Yet not all was marred by the shadows of the past. Support came from those who mattered. Tashina Arnold and Jennifer Coolidge, co-stars who had shared the ups and downs of Morris's career, were there to cheer him on. Christopher B. Duncan, his partner from The Jamie Foxx Show, also came to celebrate. Their presence highlighted a truth often lost in the glitz. Loyalty and genuine respect can outshine fame and notoriety. The event was a delicate mix of triumph, nostalgia, and unresolved tension. What exactly happened between Morris and Martin Lawrence may never be fully explained. But for once, the focus wasn't on betrayal or missed opportunities. It was on Garrett, on his talent, his endurance, and his finally recognized contribution to comedy. At 88 years old, Garrett Morris continues to defy time. Best known for his roles on Martin and The Jamie Foxx Show, Morris is still acting and looking remarkably well for his age. His Instagram tells the story of a man who, despite decades in an industry marked by chaos and controversy, remains full of life. In one post, he appears in his signature laid-back style, a blue graphic tee, a matching hoodie, and his hands raised in a peace sign. His eyes shine with the same spark that once lit up comedy stages across the country, and his smile, warm and unmistakably Garrett, reminds fans of the charm that made him a household name. Other photos echo the same theme, a man content, confident, and still very much present in the moment. That presence extended to his work too. In 2020, Morris appeared in Netflix's Self-Made, inspired by the life of Madam C.J. Walker. The series told the story of the pioneering philanthropist, activist, and entrepreneur who became the wealthiest African-American woman of her era. For Morris, being part of a project honoring such a monumental figure in Black history was another testament to his enduring career. Fans flooded his social media with excitement, praising not just his appearance in the show, but his resilience and longevity in the industry. They were reminded that Garrett Morris has lived through and contributed to decades of history, both in entertainment and in the wider world. From battling addiction and racism to surviving a near-fatal shooting, Morris has seen more than most. Yet today, he remains standing strong, smiling wide, and continuing to do what he loves. Even in the cutthroat world of Hollywood, where stars rise and fall faster than box office numbers, Garrett Morris has proven not just his comedic genius, but his savvy. By 2024, he wasn't just a legend. He was comfortably sitting on a reported $4 million, a testament to decades of work, wit, and perseverance. After decades of struggle, setbacks, and being overlooked, the Walk of Fame star was more than symbolic. It was justice long overdue. By February 2025, at nearly 90 years old, Garrett Morris looked back on the whirlwind that was the first season of Saturday Night Live. In his words, stepping into that arena required courage. You have to be very brave to make fun of a lot of what should be made fun of, he reflected. Before SNL came knocking, Morris had already spent close to 17 years in show business. He had paid his dues on and off Broadway, written his own plays, and performed in countless musicals. But television was a different beast. SNL wasn't just another gig. It was his first TV job, the highest paycheck he had ever received, and for the first time in his career, he could finally pay his rent without worry. Despite his quick wit on stage, Morris admitted he was an introvert off it. While the rest of the cast often went out together after shows, building bonds at bars and late-night hangouts, he would simply head home to his apartment. This was a mistake, he confessed. Those informal gatherings were where friendships were forged and opportunities were created. Instead, Morris kept to himself, which only deepened the isolation he already felt as the only black cast member in a sea of white faces. It didn't help that SNL was fueled by the culture of the 1970s. Late nights, heavy improvisation, and plenty of drugs. Morris openly admitted to being a cocaine addict during those years, even while abstaining completely from alcohol. Still, his biggest concern wasn't the lifestyle around him. It was whether or not he would be given space on screen. I had to fight to get people to write for me, he recalled. Being the lone black performer meant he was constantly questioning if his voice would even be heard. Some of his most memorable contributions came when he seized that opportunity himself. When Lorne Michaels pitched the bare-bones idea of a Death Row Follies sketch, prisoners on death row performing as entertainers, it was Morris who transformed it into biting satire. He drew inspiration from a shocking moment he remembered on Art Linkletter's 1950s talk show, when a white Southern woman had sung, "I'm gonna get me a shotgun and shoot all the as I see." Morris flipped it on its head, replacing the slur with whitey. The result was raw, uncomfortable, and undeniably powerful, an example of how comedy could spotlight America's racial contradictions. Morris also created the unforgettable White Guilt Relief Fund sketch. He based it on a running joke in the black community about fundraising. Organizations like the NAACP, CORE, and the Black Panthers raised money regularly, but those with white liberal support often pulled in much more. By parodying the idea of white guilt as a kind of reparations fund, Morris turned a painful economic truth into comedy sharp enough to sting Democrats and Republicans alike. Whether you were a Democrat or a Republican, you got hit by the comedy of SNL, he said proudly. For him, that was the essence of satire, comedy that told the truth no matter who was listening. Looking back, he marveled at the brilliance of the people he worked alongside. John Belushi, Chevy Chase, Gilda Radner. Their improvisations were lightning fast, their creativity boundless. Even in the midst of his personal struggles, Morris felt honored to stand among them. I was just amazed at the brilliance, he said. They were all such talented people, and I was really honored to be a part of that group. For Garrett Morris, the first season of SNL was more than just a job. It was a battlefield where he fought for visibility, a stage where he smuggled in truths about race and justice under the guise of comedy, and a turning point that finally gave him the financial stability he had long chased. Decades later, he could see it for what it was. Not perfect, not easy, but historic. After nearly 9 decades of laughter, struggle, and survival, Garrett Morris remains a living legend whose story is as inspiring as it is heartbreaking. From breaking barriers on SNL to surviving addiction, racism, and even a near-fatal shooting, his journey proves just how much strength it takes to carve out a legacy in Hollywood. But even now, as he nears 90, many feel he still hasn't received the recognition he truly deserves. What do you think? Has Garrett Morris finally been given his flowers, or is Hollywood still overlooking one of its trailblazers? Let us know your thoughts in the comments below. And don't forget to like this video, subscribe to the channel, and hit that notification bell so you won't miss more stories like this.